So what should we call our podcast?
I'm going to call it Haven,
Okay.
just because that's where we're coming from.
All right, cool.
So
Haven in Marshall, Texas.
I'm not going to get nailed down to a geospecific place because I want to cover the world.
Okay.
And I will be producing news in Marshall about Marshall, and I think that's going to be called On the Square.
That's a great name.
Because I live and work on the square,
Yeah.
and it's life down here, and I'm going to try and lure some of the tech bros in Texas from Austin to the square, live and work in the martial art colony.
Yeah, if you're gonna lure them in here, you got to get them in here on Christmas month.
Oh,
Yes,
for
that's-
the Festival of Lights.
It's the
Yeah.
Festival of Lights.
Wonderland of Lights.
Yeah, that way they'll think that it's very much Gilmore Girlsy.
Oh.
There's that, and the whole Friday Night's Light
Oh.
subculture.
Yes.
I've never even seen one episode of it, but I've been witnessing enough around the world of people that are transfixed with Texas because of Friday Night Lights.
Well, it's a football, mentality. The cult of the football culture is strong in Texas.
Very strong.
Yes.
The coach of the Marshall varsity football team is actually our neighbor.
I don't think he's the head coach. He's like one of the coaches.
One of the coaches. It still counts.
But I
I'm
witnessed
popular by association.
Did they move though?
No, he's still there.
He's still there. Okay.
Well, what do we have in Marshall that we have nowhere else? I'd like to focus on things and talk about that. Well, the pottery thing, but,
but-
an Italian firm
Yeah.
copyrighted Marshall pottery, and we can't even use the term.
Oh,
It's a shame.
But
Wow.
it is our claim to fame on the world stage because the quality of clay
Yeah.
from Marshall and the stylized pottery that has emerged from here became coveted and collected and is a thing, but we no longer can use the term Marshall pottery. We have to say Marshall clay or Marshall something. It hasn't really emerged.
so what's their claim to it? Is
They
it
bought
Legal
the
thing,
company
like the
they
trademark
bought the
and-
company
and
Okay.
shut it down.
just so they could have the name.
Why they shut it down, I don't know. I guess it just didn't pay. But so now a family, the Martinez family, owns the only clay creation pottery company here. So it's Martinez Pottery,
Oh.
and where you see the porcelain out in Haven's lobby or the gallery area, I'm going to devote that all entirely to their clay products. Because what do we have here that we have nowhere else? Mums.
No.
Mums?
You're
Like
talking about
moms?
just in Texas in general, the homecoming mums?
The
Oh.
homecoming mums in
That's
Marshall
true.
surpass all the other mums from all over the rest
Oh,
of the state.
really?
They're big,
Oh,
big,
yeah.
bigger than that.
Some are
Like-
so big, you have to have like a support because it's not going to stay on your shirt.
Right.
Like,
and they started making them for the boys too.
Oh, well, the boys always had the garters. Have they
Oh,
gone
yeah.
beyond garters?
No,
now?
no, it's the garters, but they
Yeah.
got so big,
Oh,
they're
that
as big
they-
as the mums. They just occupy the whole left quadrant of the body.
Wow, I'm glad I went to prom in Central
Well,
Texas.
it wasn't prom, it was homecoming.
Or homecoming.
And you wore it to the game. You didn't wear it to prom, like a homecoming dance.
Not
You
to the
wore-
dance?
No,
No, it's
you
at the
just
game.
at the game.
Mhm.
So you look up into the stands and all you see is just
It looks-
bouquets of flowers.
It
yeah,
looks like the
sea of
Macy's
red
Day
and white
Parade.
and
Nice.
flowers and.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I had one homecoming mom. I don't think I did too many, but
How big was yours?
it was not that big. It was just a regular.
It's only in recent years
Right.
that they've gone over the
They've
top.
got, yeah, now they can be heart shaped or teddy bears on them and. all
Well,
sorts of
somebody
things.
somebody found the pulse
They did.
to sell some crazy amount of flowers.
They plant it all year long. Who did that? That was Bill and Betty Banks at Marshall Floral.
Good for
And,
them.
and they retired in glory, and they can travel the planet now thanks to
I
mums.
know, right?
Nice. So this is basically a free bump and a free spot for this flower. We need to keep track of who we're.
So we could get, when it gets monetized,
Yeah.
we can get our cut.
Yeah.
We certainly deserve it. Because I'm going to bring Marshall Mums to the world stage. Because, like, in a Smithsonian sense of something anthropological and distinctly Marshall, these mums are amazing. So I've got this art gallery, Haven, which is what we're calling this podcast, Haven. here in Marshall, Texas.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, I think-
Please.
and maybe we should like introduce the podcast. Like, it's good to have an intro thing.
Well, this is so organic; it's already happening.
Yeah.
So
I just feel like our viewers have watched us for 5 minutes.
They walked in the middle of
They're
a
like, "Who are these
conversation.
guys?"
I know,
Yeah.
right?
So
Let's introduce ourselves. I'm Scott Benson.
I'm Muhammad Alamati,
And I'm Melissa Alamati.
and as you guess, we are not brother and sister.
No.
Yeah, we have. We don't look anything alike.
Mm,
You know, how most couples they start to look alike
yeah.
the longer that they're together.
Yeah.
I look more like our dog Chewy than.
Well,
Really, you're small.
we're very grateful to have a beautiful woman in the center of the frame.
Yes.
And in my experience, the most attractive thing about a woman is if she's taken an interest in me.
Oh,
And the most attractive thing about you as a couple is that you came to a gallery opening or a function of the Regional Arts Council, I think was the first orientation, and you took an interest in me. You were interested in what was going on, but
Yeah.
you expressed interest in me as an individual, and that's what I found fascinating about you. It's like, oh wow, they like me. They really like me.
What's that? That's
Sally Field
Sally
syndrome.
Fields, yes, the Academy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
I was clutching my award close to my breast because I'm new to Marshall. I mean, I'm an old timer, a Marshall Light, but I've been away for 35 years. And I was very concerned about whether I could reacclimate to this culture after having, pushed the envelope on 5 continents for almost 40 years. I didn't know if I could find my way back to the center here.
Well, what I found interesting about you was when I was looking at the art in the gallery, there were these 2 framed photos, or I thought were photos at the time, of these 2 beautiful women. One looked like she was maybe Pakistani or Indian, and another one was maybe Afghani. And I thought, well, those are very beautifully taken photos. I mean, the women were just gorgeous in them. And so I had asked you, we were talking about art and stuff, and then I didn't know that you were in charge of the gallery. And then I asked you, who took those pictures? And you said, those are not pictures, I painted those. And that alone just impressed me beyond anything. And actually made me feel small because I had just started doing some acrylic pours myself, and doing like artistic tables and things like that. And I thought, okay, well, yeah, I'm pretty good. Maybe I'll come to this MRAC meeting and blow some minds. And then my mind was blown off. I felt about teeny tiny when I saw your.
Well, you
skill.
also asked me about mediocre artist, and like what about mediocre artist? I'm like, well, it's about the process. It's not about the outcome. If an artist is engaging in their process, then that's what is most glorified and what is most edifying. And you made a huge impression upon me because I met somebody who's advocating for the underserved, or people who are outside of average parameters, and so I was happy that you took an interest in that. But I also literally lost some sleep because I am a portrait painter, and in addition to have sittings with my subjects, I take a photo of them and work from the photo. The subjects that you were drawn to, I had just snatched images off of the internet and had been working my process. I'd never thought of presenting it or selling it. It was part of my process because of the hyper-realism. I mean, I'm painterly and impressionistic in my portraits, and so they can look painterly and a little bit raw and somewhat organic, obviously portraitures that are oil paints with high relief, but this was my first effort at doing a hyper-realistic representation of a photo. But I had snatched the photo off the internet, and this is in the advent of AI. So as a writer and a producer, I do research, and I'll use AI or I'll use Grammarly to patch up my poor writing. but I have also in some treatments for other research used AI writing whole cloth, revise it a little bit, adapt it somewhat, but basically AI wrote the piece. And somebody had complimented me on an essay I had done, or a treatment on for a nonprofit. It was a grant proposal, and they said that was so well written. And I think I just said, rather than elaborating, I'm like, I took that from AI wrote that. I just said thank you, but it made me panic because I didn't write that. I mean, it was in part of a piece that I had composed for a grant proposal, but I didn't write those chapters. And then I had snatched. So I was working out the ethics of like, how do I communicate to people, like if I've used AI for my research or if I've used Grammarly to correct my grammar and they compliment me on my writing, I'm like, okay, well, I wrote 70% of that, but 30% of it's AI, or 70% is AI and 30% I wrote, like trying to work out the ethics of that. And so I didn't know if I'd ever see you again. I didn't know if I would see either of you guys again, but I felt this panic about like, I had used an image off the internet for my sketches and for my work, but I'm like, to what degree am I supposed to give the photographer credit? To what degree am I supposed to give AI's rendering of that on the internet?
Well, we talked about that, and when you told me that it was a picture that you had taken, but you painted from the photo.
That's my process.
Yes.
I do typically use a photo that I've taken, but that wasn't the case for this.
That's beyond, that's beyond reason, because the skill that it took to draw that,
That's what impressed us.
Yeah,
Really.
not anybody can do that.
Yeah.
It takes very high skill to draw. Whether it's from your mind, whether it's from a picture, from a model, from a picture that you took, that's irrelevant. You drew that, and you used your skill to draw that.
I was
That's
grateful
what was
that
impressive.
you brought that clarity to the topic.
Yeah, so
But,
you shouldn't feel imposter syndrome because you use your skills to do that.
But this was like right at the advent of introducing AI and working with virtual subjects and real subjects, and I wanted to have integrity, and I want to have congruity and integrity, and I literally felt a little bit panicked because I didn't know how to give credit where it was due. And as I said earlier, like, it's your process that really matters. But my process had been changing. My introducing virtual subjects or virtual augmentation to the process was new to me. It's still new to me, and I'm still working out the ethics. But thank you for that, because I wouldn't have otherwise. And again, I'm thankful to heaven that we've become friends, and that we're able to, actually explore the ethics and the boundaries and parameters, not only of that topic, but other very compelling topics. You guys have comforted me a lot in my choice to move back to Marshall, because you're the cool kids. I like.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I never thought of us as that.
Yeah, let me just tell you, the cool kids never think they're the cool kids.
No, true that. That's true. And so thanks to you and Tyler, the barista at Joe Pine.
Yes.
He's
another plug.
Yeah, a tatted hipster who moved from San Antonio, I think, but also had a cumin in Austin, which are kind of cosmopolitan places.
Does he own Joe Pines?
He owns a supply company. He selects the beans. He roasts the beans, and he's got his own roaster that distributes the product around the region. And so, in addition to being the best barista, it makes you feel like a prince when he's serving you.
Yeah.
He has his own enterprise, which is super virtuous and very hipster and very artisan. To choose to come to live in this town and to do that with a plume. Just a hero.
Well, I gotta say, his coffee was good. When I came to Marshall, what was it, in 2019? I don't know if he was running the place yet or not, but I did go there to try the coffee because this was before we had Starbucks here, and I was a big fan of Starbucks at the time. And I tried Joe Pines, and at the time I wasn't too impressed, but since you've reintroduced me to them, I gotta say, it is amazing. It's really amazing.
They're just the
so
best.
either he made the difference, or my taste buds changed.
Well, the owners were aspiring and are continuing to aspire, to do things as good as they can possibly be done. And they've been cross-pollinated, from other cafe cultures around Texas and around the world. And so the way they're conducting business, it continues to improve.
Yeah. I like the square that they're in, that courtyard.
Oh yeah.
It's underutilized.
It is.
Yeah.
Do you remember what was there in your time?
Gosh, I don't even know.
It's mostly been derelict downtown,
Yeah.
and the tide has turned
It's been
where the buildings and the businesses and the mentalities have completely made a shift and are continuing to gentrify in the best sense of the word. Because when I left here 35 years ago, it's part of the reason why I left. Things were so static and immobile
Yes.
and uninspired.
I believe the population of Marshall actually had gone down in the last few decades, not up. Where everybody else around us has been going up, Marshall's been either stagnant or going down every census.
We got lots of theories on that, but that's not the topic of today's podcast.
No, we're
No.
getting to that, but since we're elaborating on this, there are no Marshallites being born in Marshall. There's no maternity ward.
No.
You-
I wasn't even in Marshall. I was
Yeah.
raised here, but went to Longview. That's what people did.
Well, no babies are born here unless it's a midwife or an accident.
Yeah.
So we are introducing innovation districts to bring Marshall up into its potential. And among the initiatives for the innovation district is to have a maternity ward. And so we're doing our part for social engineering as amateurs, and with heart, because we would love to see this community reach its potential. But it has been static for a long time. It's got a history of being intransigent, and I'm working in immigration law with a nonprofit so that we can help new arrivals, get their paperwork in order and introduce an orderly way for new arrivals to go by the book. Because if nothing else, you can rest assured that people in Marshall want things to go by the book.
Well, whose book?
Whose book?
Yeah.
Now let's talk about books. Now the population here demographically is 1/2 Anglo, 1/3 Spanish or Latino, and 1/3 Black. The numbers don't add up.
No, they don't.
Demographically, that's an impossibility.
Plus, the social structure and the power structure is leaning only one way. If it was split into thirds, you would think there'd be equity between the thirds.
I said half and
Yeah,
then
it's
2/3.
half.
Oh,
So
so I
So
did the
it's
math.
really more. You did the math.
I did the
you
math wrong.
changed it to third.
That
It
would
was
work.
half, third,
Yeah.
third.
Those
I
numbers.
was thinking of maybe a utopian society.
Ah.
where
I'm thinking
there's
that way
equal
too.
representation.
Well, I'm thinking about the potential of
It'd be nice.
utopian society, but the word utopia means nowhere. That's what
Ah.
the word utopia means.
Because nowhere's perfect.
True that.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah.